All right, Minh, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm here. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen! Yeah! Today is May 24th, 2020. I'm Eric Murphy.
And I'm Bianca.
It is Season 4, Episode 21. V, it's been a month since we've hosted together. How are you doing?
I know. It's been going good. I've been keeping busy. There was a dry spell there for a bit, but I've been on so many different shows and live streams in the last couple of weeks. So I've been getting my camera game back on.
Oh, if people want to see that, where can they go? Where have you been?
Gosh. I was on Marie Delafonte's channel, Everyone's Autonomous. I was on Ethan Michael's new channel, Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist. Yesterday, I helped host a Star Trek themed live stream on the Daily Atheist. And I think I might be coming up on a couple Murphy's Law episodes as well.
That's right, you are. I'm not going to give details on that one just yet, but yeah, I'm working on a project and it's going to be fun. So stay tuned because when I'm ready to make the announcement, I want to have a nice little back catalog so people can binge a bit.
Whoops, my bad.
That's okay. That's okay. So that phrase is so ubiquitous, people still won't be able to find it.
Perfect. How are you doing?
I am so busy. It is just mind blowing. I have been on streams every single day the last week. And so, yeah, I've been recording for my channel and getting things ready. I've started a new project on my channel. I was on the Daily Atheist Morning Show. I had a Christian PhD apologist who teaches, I think, at King's College for theology. I've had tons of stuff. I did Twitch streaming on, yesterday. And this upcoming week, I'm planning on being out on different streams and on my own program every single day. I've been doing lunch actually every weekday from 12 to 1 on my own Facebook page, just keeping people company. So nice. 12 to 1 Central. Yeah. And we're not, it's not a huge thing. It's just hanging out and sitting around and chatting. And I don't know, it's been nice. I've been able to talk to people and answer questions and stuff like that. So, but let's see. Other than that, I heard you've got something rattling around in the works as well. Oh
yeah, there is a podcast that hopefully will be happening in the next couple of weeks, and also a drunken book project that got a lot of traction in the last couple of hours. So that may be a thing that I need to do now too.
So I think it's a really, really funny title.
Oh,
come on, could you?
All right. So there was an amazing comment that was left on last week's episode. Mm-hmm. I was misgendered on air and it cracked me up. So I was laughing. And Anthony Magnabosco, who was my co-host that week, very graciously steered the conversation in a new direction. We talked about turkeys instead. But there was a comment and they were upset because I was apparently identifying as an androgynous cat cyborg, or whatever V considers themselves. And so I've adopted it. I've gone whole hog, and it's in my Twitter bio now. I've got a sticker on the way for my laptop. It's full branding at this point. So thank you, random internet troll. And the book title is Diary of an Androgynous Cat Cyborg. So we will see if that happens. It depends on how long quarantine lasts.
I totally want to see that happen. That'd be super fun. That'd be super fun. Yay. So before we dive into calls, I do have a couple of things to say. First off, it looks like the nonprofits have been hopping into Discord at 3 p.m. Central. And so we do want to make sure that when that time comes, that people go and check that out. Also, I've got 2 birthdays that I want to mention.
Ooh.
One is another YouTuber, one is a personal friend. So I'll start with a personal friend. Hey, Katie, happy birthday. You've been an amazing friend, and I'm grateful for it. So happy birthday, just so I can embarrass you publicly. And second, Paula Gia, happy birthday, brother.
Yes.
Right? If people haven't checked out Apologia, you absolutely should. He's an amazing guy, and I absolutely support him. So if you haven't seen him, check him out. If you are subscribed or you follow him on Twitter, send him some love. Tell him we all said happy birthday, because that'd be awesome. So that said, you ready to rock?
Let's do this.
All right. Do you have any callers in mind here? I'm thinking GJ or JG.
Yeah, let's jump in.
Sure. JG in New York. You're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today? JG dropped out. Whoa.
Oh, well, okay then.
Okay. Sure. So how about we go to Joe in Kansas? Joe, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Hi, guys. Give me just a second. I'm on speaker.
Okay.
Hi, Eric. Hi, V.
Hello. Ooh, that sounds much better, too. Nice.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all good. But what do you want to talk about? What's up?
So I am, as cliche as this sounds, I'm sure, I am like somewhere in between theist and atheist. I suppose the closest thing I come to is deist, but I don't hold all of their beliefs. So, one thing that I have noticed I've watched Atheist Experience a bunch, only just kind of found Talk Heathen maybe 6 months ago.
Welcome.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about some views that I have seen from certain atheist people a lot on the Atheist Experience. Not so much on Talk Heathen, but that's because I've only been watching it for a little while. Certain views regarding hell, specifically the Christian version of hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad consistently referring to Atheist Experience here, but this is something that I mainly hear from Matt Dillahunty, Jeff D, and Russell. And it's, anytime I have heard any of them be told by a caller, if you don't believe you're going to hell, they both become furious at being told that. And that's honestly something that confuses me, because I do not believe in hell at all. And the reason it confuses me is, if you don't believe that something exists, why would you be angry at someone telling you you're going there? Like, if someone tells me I'm going to Hogwarts, I'm not excited about that because it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, so I think there are two parts to that, man. The first, I think you probably relate to more, and that is it doesn't believe. I don't believe, so I'm not really scared of a thing that I don't believe, which is understandable. The other side of it is the judgment piece. And I think that there's a fair number of people who will say, hey, you know what, you're espousing these views and you're saying, oh, they come from your God, but I don't believe in your God. So they're coming from you. And if you are telling me I'm going to hell, then it's kind of putting a bit of onus on them and saying, hey, do you think that's a right thing? Do you think that is an okay thing? And why am I worthy of eternal torment? Mm-hmm. It's not so much that I'm angry or upset about the place itself, as much as it is the just passively going, oh yeah, no, you're going to go and suffer for eternity.
Right.
And there's just a lot of nuance to it, because I think that there are a lot of believers who don't make that connection. And so they will say, hey, you're going to go to hell, but maybe they haven't thought about it fully. Maybe they're not recognizing just how heinous of a thing that is. And so I think that there are a lot of different tactics that people have to try and make people think about that. And sometimes anger is one way to do it. Other times, maybe just talking about it like this is. But I think it takes all approaches. So I think the approach that they take is valid, but not because they're actually afraid of the hell place as much as it is the judgment. What do you think, V?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Not only are they saying implicitly that I am interacting with you, but I am also making a judgment claim about you as a person, and whether or not you deserve a happy ending. No pun intended. That's for secular sexuality.
Hey!
But no, and in addition to that, they're also saying, and the God that is going to put you there is somebody that I admire, someone that I love, someone I believe in, someone you should believe in. So it's a two-part thing. It's not just I believe this is your fate. It's also I support the person who's going to inflict that upon you. So again, like Eric said, there isn't a lot of the time that viewpoint that is fully being expressed for the theist. So the theist might not understand that is what they are implicitly saying, because to them it's just by rote, right? They just have heard this their whole lives and are repeating it to you, often out of a place of actual concern, often out of a place of, hey, I want better for you than what I think you're going to get. But to somebody who has really analyzed the background and the implications, it is difficult to see it in a way that is not insulting or demeaning.
Sure. And I'll admit I hadn't considered the onus aspect of it, like Eric said. The idea that because I don't believe, in your God who is supposedly sending me to hell, then that means it's not God, but rather you, the person I'm talking to, who thinks I'm going to hell. So I guess I hadn't quite made that connection.
Sure, absolutely. But man, that is a really good question, because I could absolutely see that. And, there's so much tied into it too, because where you're at is such a lucky place. Like knowing that that hell doesn't exist and not being afraid of it is something that a lot of us who come out of religion spend a lifetime trying to get over. I mean, it is wild how many people wrestle with that. And so good on you, man.
Well, it was, I suppose I have the benefit of being raised in a fairly secular household. We went to a very casual, very calm Methodist church for the first 14 or so years of my life.
That sounds nice.
And,
right.
and I grew up in a town of less than 500 people, and it was very communal. So,
that sounds awesome.
That was, yeah. But all the same, first learning about, the supposed Christian hell, direct, fire and brimstone, I can still recall, learning about that, being probably 6 at like the earliest memories, and having scared thoughts of it as a young child. But just because of how casual my family was about religion, it was something that I guess I had the benefit of being able to cast off pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point too, Joe, bringing that up, the kind of childhood indoctrination portion of this. Another reason that I know I will get upset if somebody lobs a "you're going to hell" at me, especially on air where other people can hear, is that we get callers all the time who have deconverted but still are plagued by this fear of hell and have been abused in a sense into thinking that this was a thing that they deserved, a thing that they had to be afraid of and look forward to. So it's not just an anger on my part, how dare you think that about me? A lot of it stems from concern for those people who I know are listening to me and watching this conversation, and being concerned about how they're going to receive that and how to best facilitate their continued deconversion.
Right.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that helps, though.
Yeah, it does.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you found the show, and I hope you keep watching. Thank you for calling in, brother.
Yep. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye. So I recognize that I didn't do this at the beginning of the show.
We're a 501c3 nonprofit.
Yeah. That's right. The Talk Heathen is a product of the atheist community of Austin. The ACA puts on a lot of really awesome shows, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So if you want to support us, there are lots of ways that you can do that. One of those ways is by going to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen to me. And about 2/3 of the way through the episode, I actually hop onto Patreon live on air, refresh it, and thank our top 5 patrons. So if you want to hear your name read on air and thanked personally, you still have time. You can go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. There are other ways to support us, though, which is awesome. We have merch.
Woo!
And there it is. So you can follow that link if you're listening as a podcast. You can go to bit.ly/AEN merch. That's bit.ly/AEN merch to see all of the Atheist Experience Network's merchandise. That's everything that we do across the board. And it's really neat. And, what's funny is we announced that we were going to completely change our logo and do some kind of rebranding. And we were getting close to launching that logo and full rebrand, but we hadn't filmed the intro yet. And so we're waiting to film the intro. And then this whole virus hit. And so now we can't. And so people were snapping up merchandise because we were only going to have maybe 2-3 weeks tops, but it's been extended. So if you want that OG Talk Heathen merchandise, definitely make sure that you drop by there, because when this clears up, we're refilming that intro and we are going to be changing that logo for good.
Yes, it's going to be my face. Just
the androgynous cat cyborg face.
Yep.
Like it. I like it. All right. There's some really good callers who called in. I want to talk to Tom in the UK. Tom in the UK, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about today?
Yeah, hi guys. Nice show.
Thanks.
I was just reading. Hi. I was just reading up on the ecosystem, and as a theist, I find it very hard to believe why it's rational to think that this system was a result of randomness. So how do you approach that?
So, can I ask you a question? There's this idea, the argument from personal incredulity, and it's I can't imagine X, therefore, Y is true. My claim is true. Do you think that supports the God belief, or do you mean it more as in you're kind of having trouble understanding how it came about, but you're not actually using that as a proof to show us that God exists? Like, I kind of want to know where your frame of mind is so we know where to go with the conversation.
I don't think it's more of a physical evidence type of proof that God exists. I think it's more of a rational argument to make that if we observe how systems are formed from a human perspective, whether we make cars or aeroplanes or whatever it might be, we understand that there is an intention behind it. There's an intentionality behind it. So when I apply that same reasoning to the natural system, mm-hmm. I find no reason why I can't think that it was also intended, right?
Well, so just so I can clarify, if you think that was intended, is there anything in existence that's not intended?
I don't know. I would have to understand what example you'd be using, right? So if I saw something that works together in a systematic form, I wouldn't think it would be irrational to think that there was no intentionality behind it, because why would it work in that certain way if it wasn't intended, right?
Right. I got you. What I'm wondering is, if everything is intended, then how can you tell what's intended versus not? I'm trying to use your definitions. That way, we can meet you where you're at. And so we can take a whole lot of small things, right? Like let's take the water cycle. We have evaporation, rain, and then it gathers, goes back out to bodies of water, and it continues. It's this cycle. And it may seem complex, but each thing individually, we can see that it's a process that just it happens, right? When water molecules heat up to a certain degree, they become a gas, and they go, and it's just, it all travels along, and that's just the way that the physical world works. And so I'm kind of wondering where you think the intentionality is. You know, where was the design?
The intentionality comes from looking at other systems, right? So when we look at other systems that we have invented, right, and we structure these systems, now we look at a natural system and come to the same conclusion. So it's not a matter of how I know, but it's a matter of why I believe this to be the case.
So let me throw an example then. We're talking about weather, or I brought up weather. What's the? I know the intention of an engine for a car is to move the car. What's the intention of a hurricane, or an earthquake, or a volcano blowing?
I don't know. I don't know what the reason is for a hurricane. I am specifically looking at the ecosystem and how the ecosystem works, and coming to a conclusion that this couldn't have, because when I look at the definition of random, it basically says without any method or conscious.
Right. But we don't live in a random universe.
Right. That's important to make a distinction about.
Yeah.
But it depends how we define random, because when I look at the definition, like I just said, it says without any method or conscious. So if you say that if you say it's not random, then you're agreeing that there's a conscious behind it.
No. Let me clarify.
Because
gravity exists.
Okay.
Right? I could climb up to the top of my house and jump off the roof, and I can reliably tell you I'm going to fall to the ground. If I lived in a truly random universe, then if I jumped off the roof every once in a while, I wouldn't. But I do.
What definition of random what's your definition of random?
Well, no, we're not debating whether or not we're using the same word. We're saying that the best understanding of how the universe works does not include the word random. But just because it doesn't include randomness doesn't mean that the only other option is a conscious agent. That's a false dichotomy.
Thank you, B. Yeah.
But I think if we are to understand each other, we have to agree to definitions, right? If we don't agree to definitions, then I don't really see how we could agree with each other.
Okay, so let's apply that. If with your definition of random, right? If you're saying, because you might be building a straw man here, you might be building up a view that we don't actually hold and attacking that. So I want to make sure that we're not doing that. If you do you think that we believe that we live in a random universe the way you use the word random?
Yes, I really do believe so, because and I say this without, it's not my definition, to be very specific, right? It's a definition I find in the dictionary, which says basically random, made, done, or happening without method or conscious decision. Now, as an atheist, you believe that these workings in nature are made, done, happening without consciousness. So
well, you left out a word there. You left out method. It's not an either or situation here. We believe is such a loaded word. The best understanding that we have about nature is that there is a method. It's just a natural one. Having a method doesn't necessarily entail having a conscious agent. So saying it's either both or neither doesn't make sense. You can pick a different worldview there.
But that is my point. How do we get a system without a conscious decision?
Well, I just gave you an example.
What's the example?
The water table. The water
jumping
cycle.
Off the... But how do you know that doesn't have a conscious decision behind it?
Because you can see this natural system in every place along the way, why and how it's doing what it's doing, and there's no person going in and fiddling around with it.
Yeah, I know, but that's because you don't see how it was. Like we don't know how these systems were formed, right?
Actually, we do. We do. When water molecules heat up enough, they move from a liquid to a gas, and it rises. I mean, what part do we not know? Are you saying that maybe God has some set of levers behind the scenes that adjusts gravity and the way molecules work? Is that what you're appealing to? Because if you're just appealing to the world around us, then there's no God necessary. And in fact, there's this there's this story, and I think it's been proven wrong, but gosh, I love it. And it's what was his name? He went to Napoleon and had written a treatise on the heavenly bodies, the planets and stars moving in the sky and charting them. And let's see if I can talk about this long enough until the live chat can tell me the name, because it's just escaping me right now. But Napoleon had seen that in this book, there was no method, no mention of God physically moving them. And Laplace, thank you. And Napoleon said, I see that you've written this amazing book, but where's God? At which point Laplace replies, I see no need of that hypothesis. Right? What's the need for a God to insert himself into the way water works if we can see exactly how it does and why it does?
I know we can see how, but we don't know. Like no one was at the beginning of time, right? We don't know how everything formed.
Hold on. No, hold on. That's I don't need to have been at the beginning of time to study how water works. Try again. Maybe you're asking the wrong question.
No, I'm not asking. I'm not saying that we needed to be at the beginning of time for you to know how water works. I'm saying that we don't know. We don't know how the system began, right?
According to the way, I'm going off of experts who spend their lives studying this. It's been determined that the vast majority of water on the planet got here from meteors and asteroids hitting the planet in its early, during its formation. So far, no God.
When I say system, I'm not trying to isolate water on its own. I'm talking about the system in totality. So
but that's a meaningless phrase until we find something specific to talk about.
I'm just trying to find out why you think it's irrational to believe that there's no mind behind that system.
Sure, because there's none necessary. I step out and I step outside and I see a world that is amazing and complex, and it's amazing and complex largely because this universe that we're in has laws, right? Those laws are what we have used. Hold on a second. Those laws are what we have defined as how we understand the physical universe working. And because of that, the idea of random, throw it out the window. If you think that we think that, throw that out the window. You built a straw man. We don't think that the universe is random that way. We don't. Because, again, like I said, I could try. Cool. Let me just finish. I'm sorry. I'm not meaning to interrupt. So I just want to clarify. Again, I can tell you if I jump off my roof, I'm fairly confident I'm going to hit the ground because I don't think that I live in a random universe like that.
Okay. So I never asked you whether it was necessary for there to be a mind. I asked you why you thought it was irrational to think that there was no mind behind it. Or sorry, why do you think it's irrational to think that there is a mind behind it? Sorry.
Because why are you building extra scaffolding on something that stands fine on its own? You're putting a hat on a hat.
But you're still not telling me why it's irrational to think so. You're just telling me what I'm doing.
Because
hold
on. You know what? That is a good distinction. That's a good distinction.
So can I jump in real quick?
Please.
All right. So Tom, this is kind of where I'm coming from. I'm not a scientist. Yeah. I haven't studied this. And I grew up being told that the earth was 6,000 years old and that it was created by a god, the Judeo-Christian one, no less. So I was raised in that belief system. I got out of that. I've done some very preliminary research on abiogenesis and evolution and how everything formed, but I'm by no means an expert. But first of all, I trust these experts who have years and years and years of experience doing things I could not imagine doing with math and numbers and shit that I can't even wrap my head around. So on the one hand, I look at the body of evidence that has been constructed there, and to a certain extent, I have to say, okay, if I were to go to school and learn this, I could also figure this out myself. But for now, I'm trusting these experts. So that's the first reason why I don't think it's rational to put a mind in that equation, because as far as the majority of the experts have figured out, it's not necessary. So that's part one. Part two is the idea of Occam's razor, right? Have you heard that term before?
I think I have, yeah, but I'm not too familiar with it.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what we've already been talking about, which is the idea of keeping an explanation. Let's see if I can get this right. Keeping an explanation as simple as possible without adding on extra stuff. And that's definitely not the actual definition. But in theory, what that means is, can you get to point A to point B in a straight line? That's great. There's no need to add another point up here and go like that, right? And so if we can say, hey, we can get from point A to point B in a straight line, usually that's better than going like this to get to point B.
Damn it, now I've got the damn TikTok in my head.
I totally agree with what you're saying. If something is easy, why take the hard route? But a lot of people...
Well, it's not easy versus hard.
Can I introduce a term here? Assumptions. So the explanation with the fewest assumptions is most often the correct one. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case, but it's a good rule to follow generally. So how many assumptions are being wedged in to each of those, and how do we justify those assumptions? Now, again, you're using some language that I think is really important here, because are you rational in believing what you believe? Maybe. But that doesn't mean that it's true, right? So you can have every reason.
What is? Yeah. I think I called into a show the other week, and I basically, it's how you sort of categorize truth, right? You could have what you know to be true and what you believe to be true, and religion is a belief system. I think that's what a lot of people need to understand. It is a belief system.
Well, I mean, I think we're using a couple more words that need defining, and so I'm going to try and wrangle it back before the conversation goes all over the place. But what I'll say is, I think that you as a person, Tom, I think you are being honest with us and with yourself about what you think. And I think you came to the conclusions using the best tools that you had available. Does that make you rational in believing that? Sure. I just think you might. I want you to have the best tools possible. And I think that if you applied some of these tools that we try and talk about on this show, you may come to some different conclusions. And so it's not whether or not it's rational to believe, because I don't care whether or not it's rational. You could have grown up in a cave and had very, very little told to you. And, based on what you have, it's understandable. Okay, this is why Tom thinks that the sky is purple, because he's never seen the sky, or his definition of the word purple is different. But is it true? Is it true that God exists? And I think that we all agree that is the important question that we're talking about, right? Not whether or not our definitions are the same, because if we got all that out of the way, the real conversation is whether or not there's that God. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I could go into the reasons why it is a belief system, right? I mean,
I know you can, but because of the nature of this show, we would need to probably split that into a different call. That way we can kind of focus on that, and then maybe have like a thumbnail that has that specific topic, and that way we're not kind of buckshot all over the place.
No problem. I know I've taken a lot of your time.
That's okay. This is a really interesting conversation, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling in.
Take care. You want to go? You want to try 3 for 3?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Minh in California. It's been a long time since we've talked to Minh. You're live with Eric and V. How are you doing today?
Hello, Eric. Hello, V. I'm good. How about you guys?
Doing good.
It has been so long since we've talked. I've got to ask, I know that you had some interesting views that you called in about last time. Have you changed your views on any of those, or are you still holding strong with what you were going on before?
Can you remind me a bit like what I talked about before?
Sure. You brought up an example with an egg, and I'm not fully remembering what it was, but I'm hoping that if by saying egg, you'll remember. If not, then we can...
Yeah, I think like last time I talked to you, it was about magical thinking, I believe.
Okay. Well, but what do you want to talk about today? I don't mean to kind of shoehorn you into the last call. What do you want to talk about?
That's okay. Yeah, so I would love to ask you, are you okay with religion, exist as it does now if, people approach it in a holistic way and not just like, a be-all and end-all means for their life?
What do you mean by holistic?
Well, holistic as in, and I'm biased because I am religious myself. But by that I'm saying, based on a model I learned in science class about health, and there is, multiple dimension in a person's well-being, and religion is the part that play into, what people call, what they call spiritual wellness. So it's the idea that, if you believe in a higher cause for your existence and that you believe that, your existence has a meaning and it's beyond yourself, beyond the material, then it's have a, benefit to your total well-being besides in your physical, mental, emotional, social well-being, etc.
So you're asking, are there pragmatic reasons to be religious, just in terms of health and wellness and mental health and everything?
Yes, V. So if religion is like a piece in that puzzle to complete a person's, total well-being, are you okay with that? With the existence of religion, or do you think it's still problematic because of, the magical thinking?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I may have a different response than a lot of atheists do. And I think that religion is one way to get those things, one way to get community and purpose and ritual. But I think that inherently, at least organized religion, hierarchical religion, like the Abrahamic faiths, tend to have a lot of extra baggage that can hurt you in the long run. And so the negatives may outweigh the positives in that instance. That said, I do think that ritual is important. I do think community is important. I do think that having purpose outside of yourself is important. But none of those things are inherently religious. And you can get all of them either together all at once or from different areas if you're intentional about seeking them out. So religion is one way to get all of that kind of prepackaged and handed to you, but there are some issues with that as well, because it's not personalized to you. You might feel pressured into finding a purpose in a way that doesn't fulfill you, or behaving in a way in order to appease a community that you want to keep, or participating in ritual that you don't understand or appreciate or doesn't speak to you. In addition to the fact that a lot of religion does have inherent harm within it. So my most basic answer would be, I don't think religion is the best way to get those benefits. I do agree that the benefits are important. And I think that as a community, especially within the skeptical community, we need to have that discussion more frequently.
Yeah, and I've got a kind of a different approach here. Minh, have you heard of the noble lie?
No, I have not.
Sure. So it's this idea, and it's really, really old, but it's this idea that we should tell people, you know, it was used in a caste system, right, where your social status doesn't change. If you're a craftsman or you were born to a craftsman, that is all you can achieve. You can't. There's no vertical growth in that society, right? And the way it was proposed is, well, but if we tell people that among the leadership mixed in when God made them, that in their souls there's gold, this precious metal. You know, these people with these golden souls, they're supposed to be in leadership, and it justifies their leadership. And then further down along, you have silver and I think iron and brass, and whatever they've been created with, it would help them to accept their lot in life. That if you're just lower class, if you're among the poor, you shouldn't strive toward being anything better. You shouldn't strive toward doing anything better in your life, because that's just who you are. That is baked into your essence. And the reason why this kind of noble lie was proposed is because people would accept it better. What do you think of the idea of the noble lie? Do you think that's something that was a good idea at the time? I mean, pragmatically, it would prevent revolution. It would prevent revolt. It would make sure that the ruling class stayed, you know, where they're at, and it would prevent a lot of strife. Maybe there would be a whole lot of people who would maybe be happier with their lot in life, knowing that it just couldn't get better because it was baked into them. Would you promote the idea of the noble lie?
I'm sorry, Eric. So I had to listen to what you said again. So to answer you, probably my response, like in the case, you know, probably like the analogy lying to the Nazi, I guess. You know, like it. Sometimes you had to use a lie to say, to do the good, to do the right thing, to benefit some people. And I mean, like, if that is the case, then I guess I have no problem with that. But
see, and I do. I think therein is where we have our biggest issue. Is the pragmatic approach of telling people a lie because it makes things work better takes away their autonomy. It takes away their ability to make a choice, and it assumes that they're stupid enough or just, you know, accepting enough that you're going to make the decision for them. And I don't accept that. I think that people should make decisions with the most evidence available. That they should have as much information as possible so that they can make informed decisions. And if you decide to take that away from them, I think that's cruel. I think whether or not it's pragmatic doesn't come into play, because we should be honest, and we should have the most evidence available. If you think somebody's not going to get it, give them the opportunity to not get it at least, but don't lie to them. And so the holistic approach, I can't get behind it. And the reason I can't get behind it is because I don't believe it's true. Whether or not it's helpful, it doesn't matter. I think that I have a responsibility to communicate that so that people can make the most informed decisions possible. I mean, there are a lot of people who feel a lot of angst and frustration and sadness when they think that there's not a moral underpinning to things, right? This aporia. Or no, not aporia, anomie. But whether or not they have an existential crisis, at least they're getting the truth, and at least they're able then to make rational decisions for good reasons, you know?
So Eric, I want to ask you, like, maybe in your area it's different from where I'm living, because when I hear people mention religion, at least in the Bay Area, what they talk about, you know, is, you know, like you said, the existential crisis. What is the reason they are here? Like, what should I do to better my life, or what virtue should I pursue to be a better person? They never talk about. It's really rare I hear them talk about, you know, cosmology or, like, you know, creationism or something like that when it comes to religion. And in fact, I noticed that in a place where I used to work at, the area surrounding me was highly it's secular. Like, they don't talk about, you know, religion as in like fundamentalist, but there are a lot of things, you know, like Reiki or like meditation or like some sort of Zen retreat center. There are numerous of them around. So that's why I think, religion does play a part in that approach to deal with the question that I feel like, studying biology or chemistry doesn't help.
Tell that to somebody who is enthused
Right.
to get up in the morning to learn about biology. It just depends. I think that entirely depends on who you're talking to. We can find our own reasons to find meaning in the world around us, in this universe and in our existence. We can find those things that excite us, but we don't need to lie to ourselves or to each other to get there. I mean, Minh, I'm excited to be here to talk to you. That's enough for me to wake up this morning. Isn't that enough? I should be able to make that choice.
Yes, Eric, and I like to talk to you too, and I do it because
good.
it's my instinct to tell you to talk to you today. So it's not rational. It's just because I like it. So
Well, I think that's why we're here with about 2,000 other people, because this is our jams, man. This is what we do. This is what we like. It's what we get excited about. But I think if you're going to take a pragmatic approach, I think that I don't think that's a moral thing to do. I think that give people the opportunity, even if you're going to let them down. I mean, it'll make everybody excited if I told them they were going to get $1 million tomorrow. That doesn't mean I should, because it makes them excited or happy, right? So,
all right, yeah, okay.
we stick to that intellectual honesty, and then from there, maybe we've got a better question, like you said. Okay, how do we find purpose in our lives? Wow, that's a good question. That's better, but that's a step after setting down that pragmatic approach.
All righty.
Cheers,
okay, Eric and Ree, thank you so much for taking my call. It's very interesting talking to you guys.
Wonderful
Definitely.
talking to you. Take care, man.
All right, take care. Thank you.
I think we granted something that we shouldn't have even granted in that conversation as well. I think we granted that religion is pragmatically a good thing for people. Because we were arguing, well, sure, but we shouldn't perpetuate the noble lie. But I think that suggests two things. One, that there are no people who really suffer and really struggle in religion. And that there are people like us who found our mental health 10 times better after leaving and found a purpose that motivated us even more to be even better people. So in addition to everything we just said to Minh, I also want to press that religion is not always a good source of community or holistic well-being. It can very often be a source of pain to the point of depression and anxiety and PTSD and suicidal thoughts. I have many, many friends, especially in the LGBTQ community, for whom religion is the biggest hurdle in their life right now. So it's not all black and white in that way either.
Totally agreed. And that's a really good distinction to make. I granted it because I thought that even if we granted it, it would still be a bad approach. But gosh, if we would have just skimmed over that idea and not validated the experiences of those people, you're absolutely right. That's a good call. That's a good call. All right. You ready to move on to the next?
Yes.
Cool. Let's talk to, I'm not going to pronounce this, Rykis in Newfoundland. Is it Rykis?
Yeah, it's Rykis.
Yes.
Awesome.
Nice. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, I just want to say greetings and sisters.
You clipped out a little bit. Could you say that again?
I just wanted to say greetings, brothers and sisters.
Greetings, brothers and sisters.
I want to talk about old souls and religion, and
Hey, Rykis. It's not. Hold on, buddy. Rykis. It sounds like you've got the show on in the background, and so we're getting a feedback loop, and it's really, really distracting.
Right. A good thing is to shut that up so you're not listening to us twice.
Watching the show right now.
No, totally understood. It's okay. If you could turn that down Because it sounded like you're almost going to go into a sermon.
Oh, don't worry, man. I was just doing a little experiment with you guys. Don't worry. Just wanted to hear you guys' own voice. You know, you're so. Anyways, I want to know how old you guys were. Like, you guys say you guys were reborn, right?
Reborn.
We were. You mean we were Christian at one point?
No, like you ever hear of resurrection or people that like know their past lives? Like, I'm an indigo child, right? So I was born here many times on this earth. So like, I'm a time traveler from the past and from the future. But I'm here to change the world. So basically, I was here to help the world and everybody. And I'm just trying to spread the good news and like the truth, and not hide.
Rykis.
Yeah.
Let's break this down a little bit. So you made a whole bunch of claims, and I don't think we're going to get past the first one, because reincarnation is probably going to be what we're going to talk about. Whether or not you have good news is built upon that claim that you're reincarnated. So whether or not we should listen to anything you say, we should probably determine whether or not reincarnation is a thing, right?
Well, it's all up to you guys. It's really, you believe it or not. If you have faith or you don't. If you don't want to believe in God, you don't need to. Honestly,
what does that have to do with the truth of the claim? Doesn't the truth matter?
Basically, if you have faith, like proof, it's all around you. Like they say, time don't exist, right?
Stop. If I say proof is all around, if you say proof is all around you, you've pointed at a whole bunch of stuff that. What are you talking about? Let's get specific. Okay, so the claim is resurrection. You're talking about past lives and living multiple lives and time traveling, right? So
not time travel, past time travel.
Our mistake. Past time travel.
Okay. How does that work? So do you think that there's some part of you that leaves your body when you die and goes into a new body?
I'm not scared to die. It's just that
hold on. I didn't ask you if you're scared to die. Listen, please. If I didn't communicate, I apologize. Let me try and communicate that better. I'm asking if you think that you have some kind of soul that leaves your body and goes into others. Is that the kind of reincarnation you're talking about?
Sort of like when you're reborn into a new baby. Yeah, like I remember stuff when I was...
You're saying kind of like when you're reborn into a new baby. That makes zero sense to me. So when you use that as an example to be like, hey, Eric, like when you're reborn into a new baby. I mean, I'm not, no, dude, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you to clarify. So
you know how creation has started, right? How God ejaculated and made female and male, and he made gods. And he separated earth from sky, and that's how and he also separated the sun from the moon, and he gave us seasons from the moons, and gave us time to tell us the weeks, the seasons, and the years. And he gave us trees.
Rykis, you're preaching. Rykis, you're preaching. This is not a sermon.
I am a preacher.
Yeah, and this is not your congregation. So you're going to talk with us, but if you're going to preach at us again, I'm going to drop you, because this is not a platform that you get to deserve. Okay? That's not okay.
Oh. My bad. Sorry.
Absolutely. I appreciate your apology. All right, Rykis. So you're talking about whether or not we're going to go back to reincarnation, because that's what I want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's something extra, some kind of non-material, non-corporeal spirit that leaves your body and goes into others? Is that what you're talking about? Because that's my understanding of reincarnation, is that there's this idea of this soul that leaves and that soul goes into other places. Is that what you're referring to?
And yeah, in a way, they can go. You know how God judges you at the end, like this judgment.
No,
is like when
I
die,
don't know how God judges us at the end, because I don't believe in God. Please answer yes or no. Do you think that did I properly describe that, or did I not? I want to not run past.
You actually got to think 4-dimensional for me, because you're kind of just thinking in the box right now.
Okay, well, either you can try and understand or help clarify, because I'm doing my best to communicate with you and you're talking past me. So let's please go back to reincarnation. My understanding of reincarnation is the idea that there's a soul, and when you die, that soul leaves your body and goes to a new body, and that it just continues to do that. Is that what you mean when you say reincarnation? Yes or no?
Yes, it's just like pi. It's like, the infinite. It's infinite. Time goes on forever.
Okay, what does that have to do with my question? You're just throwing weird stuff out now. Hold on.
Okay, it's just like evolving. It's just like evolving. Your body evolves when you grow older. But
No, stop. We're talking about reincarnation, please.
You know, Rykis, it's gonna sound to us like you're scared to focus on one topic for too long. So if you want to connect with us, we're gonna have to focus on one thing and really kind of dig into it. If you jump around like this, to us that just reads like you don't want to focus on one thing because you can't back it up.
I am backing it up. I'm actually, my name is Tunka Tunkham, and my soul is 3,000 years old plus. And you go look it up yourself. I was born. This is no false claims.
Dude.
Okay, why are mummies mummified and have their?
It really has nothing to. So stop. You are so all over the place that we need to pin down. If we're going to follow you,
day one, okay?
No, listen. If we're going to follow you, we need to believe the things you're saying. If you talk at us, then and we don't believe or understand what you're saying, then it's worthless, and the call is worthless. I want this call to be worthwhile. So please.
Me too.
Good. Okay. You believe that there is a soul, correct? Am I strawmanning you, or am I steelmanning the position that you believe that souls exist?
And it's alchemy. That's what it is.
No, I'm asking you about souls. Quit using different definitions. Quit using different words. We're gonna define a word and use it. But if you're going to throw out 10 other things, then we have to define all 10 other things. We're never going to get there. Okay?
Yeah, my bad
No, that's okay. We're getting there together. So, you believe that there's a soul? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. How do you know that souls exist?
Because you hear that little thought inside your head that gives you that idea to have a dream.
So that is a deepity. That sounds very poetic. I get there's poetry in there. There's no that's empty calories, buddy. Let's try that again. I have thoughts.
Well, not God. I'm tired of saying God. I'm tired of saying God. Adam, my father.
Stop, Rykis. If you keep doing this, we're going to drop the call and we're going to move on. Please, we want to talk with you. So
can we move before we get into why we think a soul exists? Can you tell me what a soul is? Is it a separate thing that lives inside your brain? Where does it live in your body? What's it made out of? Can you describe and define what this soul is?
It's divine entity. It's sort of like energy, pure energy. It's like, you ever read about good vibes and bad vibes, and the opposite of so beloved and above and so below? Like, everything has its connections, just like energy, and how we have, Wi-Fi, how we're connecting to this phone right now, and how my voice is teleporting to where you guys are.
So our soul is Wi-Fi?
Our soul, yeah, it's like Wi-Fi.
Like 5?
We connect.
No.
Okay, so actually, here, look, okay. All right. I think I know where you're going with this. And we had a call like this last week too, where someone said, well, you know how you see color and it's your eyes interpreting, waves. And it's like that, but with a soul. And the problem with that kind of distinction is that we've proven one, right? We understand Wi-Fi and we understand how your voice from Newfoundland is coming to us in Texas. Yeah. We understand that. So we can't use this scientific thing that we understand and know how it works and just use it as a metaphor for something else that we don't know. So instead of saying, okay, well, it's like this, tell me how we know about this part, about the good vibes and bad vibes and how our souls are connected like Wi-Fi.
Okay.
What research are you citing?
You ever read about the 9 principles of law of attraction? Like, say
answer V's question. No. Answer V's question. What did V ask you?
Yeah. You told me about our soul and how, is a scientific fact about, how it time travels to you guys to the phone, and you guys want to know how our soul connects through Wi-Fi, and it connects through it on an intellectual.
Okay, so that is not the question that V asked.
I wish I had asked that question. That question's 10 times weirder.
But so let's try again.
Here's my thing. Pretend that I have not read The Law of Attraction. So let's not go to a source that I haven't read as though I had. Let's pretend that I haven't. Okay, I haven't read that book. So explain to me what you mean using and using words that we can both understand. Don't reference something that maybe I haven't read or seen, because we have an audience who also probably hasn't read a lot of these things.
Yeah, well,
let's get very basic.
I wrote a book, actually. I wrote a book. It's called Reborn Again, but I'm not done it. I'm still got to write the 9 chapters of it. But I'll read you a part of my book. It was about how I was a native.
I don't think that's what we want to do right now.
Yeah.
I'll leave that for another day. Well, whatever about my book, but
okay.
I wrote a book.
I'm just listening for you to answer V's question, because if you don't answer V's question on this one, I'm going to let you go.
I'll let you go. I was going to actually get my book on the go so people can understand the truth about reality and why we're here.
Okay, well, we gave you the opportunity to talk about it and talk to us about it and teach us, and instead you lost that opportunity. There was a swing and a miss. But next time, Rykis, next time, listen back. You were galloping off in different directions, and you weren't answering a single one of our questions, and that is not productive conversation. Sorry. We've had someone call in before, and they said that, oh, energy, man, it's pure energy. I have energy powering these lights. I have energy powering this computer. If I stick myself to a light socket, does that mean I'll have more soul? Does that mean I'll get some kind of powers? No, because we actually understand what electricity is.
Right, exactly.
If energy is something else, then you got to find a different word, because it's confusing. But right now, when you appeal to these vague, nebulous thoughts and you don't back them up, then you're talking at us. And we don't have time for that. We have people who are calling in honestly, who want to have conversations about what they believe. I know you believe it, man, but if you're doing that to yourself, slow down. Take your time. If it's worth believing, you should be able to slow down, think about it, work it through, and if it's still worth, accepting, okay. But don't just cloud yourself with 10,000 thoughts a minute and not pick up or evaluate a single one of them, because that's what you demonstrated to us. You demonstrated that when we asked you to define one thing, you gave us 500 others. Take your time, bro. There are a lot of people who are wondering if he was a Poe. I might believe that if I hadn't met people like him in real life. What about you, V?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think he called to pitch his book. And
agreed.
I think that's not something that we encourage on the show. I just think it's very interesting that you could see that at work, the mindset where I ask one question and he interprets it in a completely different way that already grants 10 of his presuppositions. Like, oh, V granted that our souls connect through Wi-Fi and we time travel to talk to each other. I'm like, well, I mean,
yeah,
it would be cool to have that conversation in the context of, hey, there's this cool sci-fi novel that just came out, but yeah, that's just make sure you're listening to what the people are actually saying and not what you think they are saying or what you want them to say, because that never leads to a productive conversation.
Agreed. It sounded kind of like he was waiting for his turn to talk.
A little bit.
Yeah. But we have another caller from the Frosty North. Let's talk to Dave in Toronto.
Ooh.
Dave, you're live with Eric and V. Hey.
Hello.
Hey, you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I've been listening to your show for quite some time, and I've been trying to summon up the courage to call like everyone else. So I finally did it.
Ah, congrats. Happy to hear from you.
Just so you know, I love you guys. And I know we're running short on time, so I'll try to make the spiel a little bit fast for you guys.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I know I wanted to ask you guys how you're doing and all that, but it seems like we're low on time. So I'll just get straight to what my thoughts are about the whole God thing that everyone's talking about. So I had the opportunity to work with some like old indigenous people, And, you know, they do meditation and that whole woo kind of concept thing. And one of the things that they were trying to tell me was about the descriptions that we use as people. We use these descriptions, these words to describe things. And one of the things that they were saying was that the English language, the man-made language, the new English language that was made relatively late in human era, the word that we use, which is called nature, the old word was just called God. It was just a label for things doing things without us knowing why they're doing things. For things having attractions and repulsions, affinities, non-affinities, likes and dislikes, rocks and anything. As they move, there are things moving it. So the old word they said was God, and the new word is nature. And I feel like that's where most of us get tied up on. Yeah.
Maybe in the circumstance that you observed. I mean, that's not my lived experience, but you know, if that's something that you've come across, we can talk about it.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what I was calling to talk about, was that there's a bunch of things happening out there. And, you know, currently we use the word nature. Nature is doing it. Does nature have a mind? What is it doing? But it's something is happening out there. Like things are, you know, they're pretty much, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but they're interacting with each other. How about that? And that interaction, we currently call it nature, and the old word was God. It was just something doing something.
Well, so
I don't believe in a dude in the sky. Sorry to cut you off. I don't believe in a dude in the sky that's going to zap you if you jerk off or something like that. Like, I don't think about it like that. Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, good to know. I wasn't going to ask that particular question, but that's because our last caller already beat me to the answer on that. So here's what I want to ask. Are we playing word games,
Sure.
or are we trying to determine whether or not there is some kind of God that exists? Because if we're just talking about redefining words, then, I mean, cool, but that happens to all words. Or are we talking about something deeper? Because I might not be on track here. Help me out.
Okay, yeah. So the deepness just comes with the things that are outside doing whatever they're doing, and either giving them their independent minds or having something driving that kind of interaction. Like, for example, the attraction and repulsion between two things. So that movement there is what they just consider God in at least in the old language. And I had the privilege to speak to some actual real Egyptian people.
But here's the thing. So if I were to create an electromagnet and I were to artificially create some magnetic force, would that magnetic force now be a mind?
No, absolutely not. But it does have its attractions and repulsions.
Agreed. And you're not saying that it's wanting to. You're not saying that it's I'm giving
there's no will behind that. It just has a reaction to things, right?
Okay, so it sounds like we're just redefining words.
That's what they were saying. The word nature is just redefining an old word. That's all I'm really saying. I'm not saying anything else. So yes, you're right. We just redefined an old word. That's all.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's an interesting conversation to have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry, there's a little bit of overlap. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting conversation to have, especially because when I was coming out of Christianity for a while there, I was like, oh, well, I don't believe in a God in the sense of like maximally great being, but I do believe that nature is super cool and does things that I don't know about, and that we only understand a fraction of what's actually going on in the world. So maybe nature is God. And then I was a pantheist for like a hot second. And then I realized, well, I'm just putting another word on nature, right? So I kind of did the opposite thing. So instead of saying, oh, well, nature is God, I said, well, God is nature. And it sounds very similar to what you're saying. The point that I would have contention with is if you try to equate those, then a lot of people will say, well, if you believe in nature, then you by definition believe in God, and then you're not an atheist anymore. And I've had that play try to happen. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to get on board with that. But from a personal stance,
I don't actually believe in God. I just believe that things are doing things, and the old word was God. I don't actually believe in the majority of the definitions of God kind of thing. I think that
sure.
Yeah, I just don't believe in that at all.
Then if that's the case, then we've got nothing to argue about. I mean, really, what's interesting is, as we kind of observe the way we as a society and as a people move through the world and understand things, we learn more, and we gather that information together and create these views of the world that are in line with more in line with what's actually going on. So if you didn't understand how thunder and lightning were happening, but you decided to describe it as, Thor, tromping around through the clouds, then okay. But as you wound up learning about that natural phenomenon, you changed that view and you started talking more about electricity. You started talking about lightning. You started talking about the processes in nature that lead to it. I don't know. It sounds poetic, but ultimately, if we're just talking about words changing, then I don't know, man. I agree with you. I don't see a lot of use to the conversation.
I think it's useful in that we have to understand that when a certain group uses the word God, they don't necessarily mean the same thing that we mean. And I think a lot of the time, especially atheists who have not done research into world religions and different types of belief systems, not that they're true, but a lot of the time they don't correspond to a maximally great being, like in the Judeo-Christian sense. I have a friend on Twitter who's a heathen, a pagan, and they believe in Norse mythology, I believe. And they were having this argument, and this atheist kept using terms from their understanding of Christianity. Well, you shouldn't circumcise your kids, and you shouldn't believe in a God that flooded the world. And this pagan was like, I don't. This is not my God. Like, you're not understanding. And so a lot of the time, I think that that's very useful to be able to say, hey, we are using the same word. We could mean very different things. And it could very well be that your word for God means something closer to what reality is than ours does. So we might mean this magical sky being. You might mean nature and the way processes outside of our comprehension work. There's a problem using the same word for both, and I agree with that, but we can't label our version of God on top of someone else's. So in that sense, I think it's a very useful conversation to have.
Yeah. I actually liked how you spoke about those, these stories, how it's like being interpreted, because I think they're actually just really good stories with good moral values, and I think humans are taking them a little bit too literal, and they're like starting to kill people and they're doing all kinds of crazy things, thinking that it's actual literal thing, when in truth they're beautiful moral concepts that you can just choose to adopt in your life. Cool.
Hey, I stand corrected. That was a very good point. I'm changing my view on that. You're right. there is value there.
Yeah, fair. Thanks for bringing up the conversation, Dave.
At least for 2%. Oh yeah, people. Thank you. Thanks for taking the call. I've been thinking about calling you for like months. So I'm glad I did. Maybe I'll call back and we can continue our conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
If you've got more to add and you think that it would benefit by having a back and forth, that we can, have something that everybody agrees, or not everybody agrees, but everybody could benefit from, then cheers. If not, you just want to kind of talk and share, I suggest you check out the Discord, because you've got a lot of people who want to have more kind of in-depth conversations that continue for a long time. That's a lot more...
lead somewhere, yeah.
Well, because this is a call-in show with a short amount of time versus having the time to go over some concepts with people. But if it's good for the call-in show format, we're here.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right. Take care, man.
Oh, and also I love you guys a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That was nice.
Yeah, I like it. I think we don't talk enough about, and of course, the reason I don't talk a lot about religions outside of Christianity and that certain lexicon is because I don't have knowledge of it and have not talked to enough people to have a full grasp of it. But it's useful to know that there are other versions of religion out there and be aware that we're using words differently so that we can have productive conversation.
True enough. I think it's that time.
Thanking the patrons, are we?
Yeah, I think it's time to thank our patrons. We had a new patron who just signed up during this show.
Wow.
We have our only member of the Love Ring Club. Or is this the Love Ring? No, this is... Oh, I don't think I have the right name up. But Eric, tweet. Thank you. That is our number one patron. Followed by Desert Heathen, The Barefoot Gardener, Gary Day, and Ward Nippling. And to be fair, we also have Cully and Charlotte Crum, who are also tied at that level. Thank you so much. It's because of your patronage that we're able to do this. And we've got a lot more calls that we want to take, but is there any way that we can maybe take a look at the crew cam at some point? Because what we've got is we have a ton of people who are working behind the scenes, who are here hours before us and will be here for hours after us. And the ACA is needing to get a lot of these programs. Hey, everybody!
Woo! Hey, y'all.
Yes, that's our crew. That is 6 people that are working behind the scenes to make this show. 5 people who are working behind the scenes to make this show happen. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do this. This is why the program looks so good. This is why it sounds so good. This is why we've got these callers on the line who've been prepped and screened and all of that, and we're able to take them. This is why, I mean, I was on the line with Vern beforehand, making sure that this audio worked out okay. Hopefully I should be coming in louder than I have the last couple of weeks. That's because they're taking the time, and there's no way we would have been able to do this if we hadn't moved to the cloud and done everything online.
And gotten our souls all hooked up on that Wi-Fi.
Oh, gosh. But it costs money. These programs cost money. And it's the support that's leading to that. It's the support that's causing us to continue to put out other shows and is helping the ACA support other organizations. If you like that mission, you want to help support it, consider going to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. If you can't, totally understood. You're awesome, and we're glad you're here. We see that growing. And, there's over 2,000 people watching and 300 upvotes. Smash that like button. That helps a lot. That gets the show out so other people can see it. I mean, share it with your friends, or leave a review if you're listening later on a podcast, because all of those things help. I know that it's tough times, and I don't want anybody to think that they have to give money when they can't, because that's not okay. We're here for everybody. But if you want to find non-monetary ways to support us, those are some ways you can do it. Also, if you have the time, we would deeply, deeply appreciate it if you considered signing up for the Hotline Project. It's such an important thing. You can go to recoveringfromreligion.org and sign up for the Hotline Project. We need more people. Mm-hmm. That organization is doing good work, and there are so many calls that aren't getting answered because there just aren't enough people. Even if you take one call a week, that's one less call a week that goes unanswered. That's awesome. So I think that's enough of a call to action. You ready to move on to the next caller?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's talk to Marissa in Washington. Marissa, you're live with Eric and V. What would you like to talk about?
Hi.
Hello.
First, I just need to say that I get really nervous on the phone because I have autism. So it's kind of, if I pause or something, that's why.
That's
no
okay.
worries.
No worries. We're glad you called.
So I wanted to, I think I am seeing I don't know what you consider secular therapy, but I'm seeing a therapist who, she does not Christian counseling, but she happens to be a Christian. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of concerned that she maybe is tossing out certain sciences that don't comport with her religious views. And I just acknowledged to myself on Tuesday that I don't believe.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
A huge step.
Yeah.
And like I'm still in shock. I just don't even know for sure what I'm thinking right now. But I'm concerned. Like I'm kind of wondering what you guys think, because I've heard that sometimes seeing Christian counseling can make things worse. And I'm kind of concerned that since I asked her, like, I don't know, I told her that it wasn't a choice, and then right after that she asked, well, how are you feeling about this new choice you've made? And we argued for 15 minutes about that I didn't choose it and then I tried to use some examples that Matt gave, like some like analogies that I heard Matt use a couple of times, and she still said that it was a choice. So ultimately, I tried to use an analogy like how homosexuality isn't a choice, but people think that it is. And before I could do that, I needed to establish that she knew that that they've been able to determine that homosexuality is something that you're born with, that you're not and her response was, I'm not going to give you my personal views, but I didn't ask for them. So I'm really concerned that she may be throwing out science that would be relevant to other people's mental health. And if that's the case, she could be throwing out sciences that could be relevant to mine.
Yeah, it's a good thing to be aware of, for sure, and to have this kind of conversation right out the gate with her. I'm always hesitant to weigh in on relationships with people and their therapists, just because it is such an intimate relationship a lot of the time, and I don't know you or your therapist. So all of that said, there is a big difference between a counselor or a therapist who is Christian and Christian counseling or Christian therapy. So that right off the bat, if you are not being told that you are possessed by demons, then probably you're not being Christian counseled necessarily. But there can be biases that people bring to their counseling if they have a certain worldview, for sure. And the most important thing when seeing a counselor is that you feel unjudged and you feel like you guys can get to the same page, and that they understand you. And if that's not happening because of her faith or because of any other disconnect, then that's a reason to maybe start looking for somebody else. I wouldn't say that I know for sure that she is doing this. We couldn't know that. But if you are seeing already a little bit of friction and a little bit of conflict as you're talking about your loss of faith, and she's not allowing you to use the terminology that you want to use, that is a little bit of a red flag for me. And it could be that you are okay leaving that and talking about other things that don't touch your atheism. But it could very well be that right now you need that extra support because this sounds like a very recent and a very big thing that you're grappling with. And to not be able to talk with your therapist about it or to have added anxiety on top of that feels counterintuitive and counterproductive to me. So my first reaction, just hearing you talk, is it feels like your therapy sessions are adding anxiety to your plate instead of being a place where you can let some of that go. And I'd keep an eye on that. If that's not something you want, then you are free to break up with them and find somebody else. We do have the Secular Therapy Project, which is a database of therapists who are secular, who have been vetted.
I checked that.
The
nearest one is 300 miles from me.
Oof. Yeah.
A good number of them do telemedicine, though.
That's true, especially now.
My insurance doesn't cover telemedicine.
You might be surprised. It might be worth checking back because currently there have been a lot of changes to a lot of insurances since this coronavirus thing.
Okay.
So it may be worth checking into to see if that's still the case.
I guess I can do that. And this is a really big thing for me. And like, I'm not even fully acknowledged to myself that I don't believe yet. Like, I started thinking I maybe don't believe in February, but I didn't really know. I didn't say it out loud until Tuesday. So
it's a big step to say it out loud, and you should feel supported as you talk about this, because it is a big deal, and how you approach it in the next couple of months and the responses that you get from the people you trust are going to influence how you move forward. So if this is something that's important to you and you don't feel like you're being supported, I would do a little bit of searching. That doesn't mean that every Christian counselor or every Christian therapist is going to have the same issues. I know some that are very progressive and very much embrace their field of science. But yeah, that would be my 2 cents.
I think you hit the nail on the head, B. Those are all of the thoughts that I had too. But we wish you the best, and it took a lot of courage to call in. It takes a lot of courage to get to the place that you're at. So I just want to validate and say, hey, you're doing awesome. Cheers, and here's to an entire lifetime spent working to continue to better yourself, and just like we're trying to better ourselves. That's awesome.
And hey, if you do want other people to talk to, we do have a Discord. We plugged it before, but we could plug it again. You can also email tv@atheist-community.org. And sometimes some of the hosts pick up those conversations if they're interesting questions or things you're struggling with. So yeah, there are ways to get that community, get that support outside of therapy as well, as you're figuring this transition out, as you're kind of battling with all of these feelings. Having that support of people who have gone through the same thing is going to be helpful, regardless of how you choose to continue with your therapy.
Yeah, everyone in my town, like, they're religious, and I don't know any. For 35 miles, so.
Well, we're right here. We're in your pocket.
Yeah, thank goodness. It's a good thing.
Can I ask whether you guys think that belief, like religious belief, is a choice or not a choice?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good question. Eric, I'll let you take this. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, you're doing great. Yeah, so I don't think you could choose to honestly believe something. I think that you're left to believe those things that you have, you're using your epistemic toolbox. You're applying how you understand the world to the world, and what you get back from it, that's how you form your beliefs. I think that you can have bad tools and believe untrue things, but I think you can do that honestly. You just need to get better tools. So in one sense, yes, I do think that, in one sense, no, I don't think that you can choose your beliefs. That said, you can also lie to yourself. How do I know? Because I did.
I did I've done it since February, so I get that.
Yeah, and it's rough and it's hard, that cognitive dissonance when you're trying to hold two thoughts in your head and they cannot exist together. And you find yourself between this kind of rock and a hard place. But do I think that that's really choosing your beliefs? I don't. I think you can fool yourself. But ultimately, when it boils down to it, you believe what you believe based on the best evidence you have available, or you're trying to force something that's maybe not working. Maybe there are other options, but that's what I've experienced.
Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. Just you choose what you intake, which could change your beliefs. But I don't
exactly.
Think that, I wouldn't choose to live in a community where the only friends that I could have are religious, and then choose not to be religious. That doesn't seem like it would be a choice. So yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, and best of luck, Marissa.
Thanks. Have a nice week.
You too. Ooh, B. Andrew called in. Hey, Andrew, in San Francisco.
This isn't Adrian, remember.
Oh, this isn't Adrian. Oh, I got them mixed up. Darn it.
Again.
Okay, this isn't Adrian. I'm always doing that. Hey, Andrew, you're live with Arrogant V.
We're not going to tarnish you with
going
Adrian's
on?
reputation.
Another beautiful day, my friend. I know we're a little late in the show, but what did you want to talk about?
Man, you know, I'm new to listening to atheists. I'm gonna be true. I had kind of a stigma about them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to a lot of material, and you know, I really just kind of want to establish a relationship with you guys. I do have a little movement I'm trying to start. I don't know if it's a religion or whatnot or a perspective, but I think we have a lot of things in common. I kind of just would like to join into the conversation on just things about the Bible, or, you know, trying to maybe just define terms like myself. I believe in God, you know, big time, right? But I think a lot of people are lost in translation, and when I see the Bible, you know, I didn't really grow up with the Bible or nothing like that. I don't really get along with churches. I'm not constantly getting kicked out, but, you know, I'm stirring up trouble because I ask questions, and that's what I like about the atheists, is they're holding a tight line on the standards. You know, I don't like it when all the churches that I went to couldn't really explain it, and there was that leap of faith part. And I'm like, you know, am I learning something from somebody who's not really an expert on the subject? But when I look around and compare the Bible with science, I mean, I just see nothing but correlations. You know what I mean? About I mean, everything from Noah's flood.
Ooh, that is one contentious topic, my friend. Do you want to go on and talk about Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So do you think that there was a global flood?
Yeah.
Global or regional?
You know what, on this subject, I mean, not so much global. Like, I don't think the whole world was covered with water, but I know there was a period of time that just came up. You know what I mean? Where you know what? We could do another subject, and if we have more time, or I can look it up right now. But I mean, we can start on Adam and Eve, and then I can get the actual. I don't know if it's Ethocene, Eocene, but the waters. The sea level raised 25 feet per year for like an extended period of time. If you were on a place that got surrounded by water from all sides, I could see how they could think the whole world was flooded. You know what I mean? From their perspective.
Yeah, but that said, that's not what the Bible says, right? There are flood myths all throughout different religions, because floods are a natural occurrence in the same way that there are myths that are around other natural disasters. Now, if you were to say flood, therefore Noah's Ark is true, do you see how that's kind of a leap for us?
The thing is well, scientifically, it's called a population bottleneck. So that so much of humans were gone. So that I'm just saying you have to take into consideration the author's lack of, because this is how I believe. The First Testament, to me, is kind of like
Genesis.
Okay, sorry guys. No. Sorry guys. This is what I got to say first. This is what I was taught in college. There's three major accomplishments that man's had. First was the ability to speak, and second was the ability to write it down. So the First Testament to me would be like, you know, trying to pass on the culture or the stories, and then it finally got written down. But these were stories that were verbally told. So there's going to be a lot lost. And then once you had,
hold on. No worries. You're bringing up a lot, and there's no way we're going to go over so much without, you know, talking about it. Otherwise, you're talking at us, and it becomes a presentation and less of a dialogue. So I kind of, you did clue me in on a couple things though that I want to ask. Number one, do you think anything in the Old Testament actually happened, or do you think that they were told as seen through the eyes of, you know, Bronze Age goat herders?
Right.
Because if they were seen through the eyes
of
okay, so do you think there's actual things to be learned or gained, or any truthful accounts of things, or is it just kind of a fantastical story the way we read about, you know, Greek and Roman and Norse mythology?
I think there's something prophetic in it. I don't know if I'm using the right words, man, but there's something in it that they had. I think it proves meditation or some kind of thought that they can have foresight to see certain things. And I think it was used as a tool to unite our species. You know what I mean? Or at least
that can be true of any fable, though. I mean, I can say the same thing about Aesop's fables. Right, I can bring up a whole bunch of fiction that can help teach you lessons. That doesn't mean that that fiction is true. It just means that there were lessons learned. So if I went and bought a Bible, can I just cut out the Old Testament entirely and just take the New Testament? I mean, I did that once actually on air. Somebody was saying, oh, well, there's stuff you don't need to listen to in the Old Testament. And so I started ripping pages out and people got really pissed. It's like, but if you're saying it's not really worth anything, but just, fanciful stories, then I kind of want to get to what's true. Don't you? I mean, maybe we're talking past each other. Do you?
No, I definitely want to get what's true. So let's try to see if I can do this when I'm defining God.
Sure.
Okay, because it took me a long time to be able to say, okay, this is what I think God is. So the truth of what it is, and this is the whole movement I'm trying to start, and it's a lot more than religion. In this social club, there's spiritual, political, financial. So we're trying to cover everything. So I don't care what religion they are. When we think of the perspective of a human being, we just got to look. I'm looking for the lowest common denominators. And when they say God is everywhere, God is throughout all time, and I can't sin against you without sinning against God, I'm like, man, how can that possibly be, right? And I'm looking at science, and then that verse popped out where it says, "Let's make man in our image." So where I'm really thinking about God is like a single cell organism that can multiply itself, and now everything in life is part of it, because you can't deny you have cells in your body. I mean, I know science calls them cells, but science didn't invent.
You went 5 different places again. Places again. No, that's okay. You're excited.
This is impressive. This is kind of tying in all of the other calls we've had today. We've got the using religion for holistic purposes as a pragmatic thing. We've got using the term God to mean something natural. We've got the Gish Gallop from whatever his face was from Newfoundland. We've got it all in one call. This is great.
I feel like we can apply them all here.
Okay.
So
yeah, I wasn't listening to all of them. I'm sorry, guys.
No, this is good. This is good TV.
Yeah. So, V, where do you want to pick in, and then I'll jump in as well.
I guess my question is, if we're using, why are we using the Bible specifically? Or are we? Are we using all religious texts?
I think it's this is what I want to do with the club. I want, and I don't want to sound crazy, because there's a lot of crazy elements to the social club, but it has nothing to do with my religious affiliations. It's because I'm from the Bay Area.
Okay. Hold on. More Bay Area callers?
This is impressive. It's a theme.
Does everybody still say hella in the Bay Area?
Does everyone what? I'm sorry.
Do people still say hella in the Bay Area?
Oh, yeah. Hella.
Oh, gosh. No, I'm still not going back to the Bay Area. Okay.
No, I want to know why you called in to talk about the Bible specifically, though.
Yeah.
Why did I call it? I want to really call in because I've come up with this thing called Bay Area Nation, and we're trying to unite the religion. And I'm telling you, at churches, I can't get a good conversation because, like you guys are saying, it's not really an intellectual fight. It's I'm lacking in faith. So it's funny, as I've been learning about you guys, I'm like, man, you know what? They're really holding people up to standards. They are giving both people a side to say their voice. And I'm just really trying to come in the middle and go, hey, I love science. Let's read a book. But when I'm reading science, I'm understanding God's method, because science didn't invent plants. It didn't invent all this. So we're playing with the master's tools in the essence of life.
Whoa, stop.
Just looking at life.
Time out.
But we're not getting to the answer to this question, though. So you say, okay, I love science. That's great. Let's read a book. Love books. And then you say, but God. And you've tied God to the Bible in this conversation. So I'm assuming you mean the God of the Bible. Is that right?
I'm really on a monotheistic hype. I'm just trying to unite people. So I'm looking at the big major religious group.
That is a term. That is a term that I'm going to use with your permission, a monotheistic high. I like it. No, but my question still stands. You're on a monotheistic high. You like science and you think it correlates with the Bible. Why the Bible specifically? Did you look at the other books? Is the Bible the one you chose after researching all of them? How did you come to that one book as your guide to how to interpret science through God?
Well, I guess I was born Catholic. I never went to church as a Catholic as a kid, maybe just baptisms and funerals. So, then I went, I was kind of out in the streets. And when I went to Christian church, I liked it. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, this is a gang as well, because they're talking about Muslims. I got Muslims in my family. We're real diverse out here. So I can't get behind something, that's making somebody else an enemy. That's why I'm trying to come up with something new, because I'm like, how can I get baptized in a church with blood on its hands?
Sure. So let's. Oh, dang. I think that you took words out of my mouth from when I was 19. Yeah. So, okay. Hold on. Let's back up a bit, because it sounds like you really don't care whether or not it's true. You want to bring people together. And if you don't, do you care whether or not it's true? Because the whole point of this show is whether or not that God exists, not whether or not it can help people. Because if you want to hear that conversation, we had that one earlier in this episode. But do you care whether or not it's true? Because it sounds like that's kind of secondary to your goal.
I do think it's true. I think that people came together to write the book, to give to us as a blueprint to get somewhere into a point in time. I don't think
right. And so why this book? Why did you pick this book? Is it because it's the one you read?
That's the one I'm familiar with. It's the one I'm familiar with.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. It sounds like you're attempting to bring people together. There are other ways you can do it. You don't need to start a new club. What you need to do is go volunteer. Go help the homeless.
Oh, I've done that.
Go, work with your hands. Go give to people. There were plenty of times that before I moved out here, there was a church doing something awesome, and I was like, cool, nobody else is doing it. I went in and lent a hand. Right? Those are ways that you can bring people together. And that's a secular way. That's a way that doesn't require a religion to get everyone behind to go and help. But again, I just feel like we've missed the biggest point here. And the biggest point here is the God belief true and justified, or are we using it to our own ends? I think it's a noble idea, that you've got, but I also think that you may be creating a noble lie. Propping up these beliefs that maybe.
Well, what I'm saying is, when you're looking at
believed, and if you think
what I'm saying is,
then I disagree.
No, what I'm saying is, and that's why I want to call people, because I seem like, I watched a few of the atheist shows. I was getting prepared for him. I kind of called this one freestyle, but the thing is do you look and when you're replacing God in the Bible, can you do it from a single cell organism perspective? And if we can check that work to say, because that's how he's omnipresent, that's how he's this, and that's how it blends with science. So how can we teach this?
Wait.
You know what I mean? How can we teach
No. I don't know what you mean. You gave me a bunch of word salad. What? You said,
are you saying that we can sub out God for single-celled organism and it will still make sense?
That would be a blasphemous statement. So let me say, I want to say I have the most respect for God, because I really think that he gave.
I don't. Hold on. No.
This entire thing is blasphemous. Yeah, we're fine with that. You don't have to worry about that.
I think the God of the Bible is one of the biggest immoral monsters that you can get.
I also don't think a single-celled organism gets jealous or orders genocides or causes mass floods. So I don't think you can I don't think you can swap them out.
Yeah, I think that's why I said it's not a good. There's probably something more, but I'm just saying, for a teaching perspective, when people are wrestling with a lot of these things, because from the King James to the new one, like that same passage, or the one in the beginning was the Word and the Word was God, they're like superimposing Jesus on it. I don't believe that's my biggest discrepancy, and that's why I'm friends with a lot of Muslims. They're like, man, you sound like a Muslim, but I'm like, dude, I read the Bible and I come to these conclusions logically. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
I think you might be coming to logical conclusions despite the Bible, but that might be picking.
You're granting the logical conclusions, which remain
fair,
to be seen.
Fair. Ooh,
I like that you called in though, Andrew, kind of freestyle. I think that a lot of the time people call in with a script and you kind of get them off the script and then they can't have a conversation and they try to go back and it's frustrating. So I like that you called in to just kind of shoot the shit with us and brainstorm some ideas. I think next time I'd do a little bit of external research and come with some really surefire examples that really kind of clinch your argument so that you can present them and then we can have a conversation about those.
Where should I get that from? Get the Bible and science? Want me to get them all together?
Well,
I mean, where you want me to research from?
We want you to give us what you believe. Not what you think is useful, not what other people think, and not how those things can fit together. What you actually think and why, and do you have good reasons for it? Whatever effect it has on the world. I mean, what if the truth just has a terrible effect on the world? Does that mean we should lie to everybody? I don't think so. I think that we should endeavor to find what's true about the world and then make informed decisions and build this world the best way that we can with what we have. I don't think you need the Bible. I think the Bible's superfluous. I think it's an addition that you're trying to add in, and I see why you're trying to do it. But I don't think you need the Bible to do good things.
Can I tell you, I'm trying to make a trilogy.
People in to do good things.
I'm trying to get a trilogy going. I think we all need
another novel pitch.
Yeah,
another
that's a terrible
another
idea.
book.
This is
Make another book, guys.
Stop. No matter what happens, your morality, your ethics, right? What you think is right and wrong is going to change over time. Who knows? Now, don't get me wrong. People who are vegan, who are watching, I do not want you to call in. This is not Talk Vegan. But if it happens to be that we as a society recognize and go, hey, you know what? Killing animals is wrong. Then maybe 2,000 years from now, people will look back at us and say, wow, can you believe that our ancestors were these monsters that killed animals? Right? I want our ethics and our morality to grow. And when you set down these moral tenets and say, hey, this is what you're supposed to follow, I think you are setting us back. You are creating this stopping point. You don't need to do that. Find good reasons that are good reasons on their own. Helping people is not something you need to write a book and tell people they have to do. You don't have to lie to them. You don't have to create extra reasons. You're helping people because it's the right thing to do. People who are on board for doing that with you, cool. Those are the right people to build a community with.
Right.
You don't need to change you for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, we're on this world because, I believe in reincarnation. So I do want to come back to a better world. I don't think I'm going to fly around the sky. So
we disagree with you.
I feel like we're getting punked. Did you all get together beforehand and discuss topics? Because this is impressive.
No.
But
it's the Lord. Hey, God's working.
Nope. And no, come on. Okay, I get you. You're being funny. I get you're being funny. No, it's okay. We got another caller we want to take. But yeah, definitely listen to what V said. Get some thoughts together. We want to know what you think is true, not what we think is useful. And we don't want you to hide in, and I don't think you're intentionally doing it, but I think that's something that people learn to do is they hide deeper thoughts in analogy that they don't have to think about anymore. They hide it in flowery, phrases, but really when you break down into it, there's not a lot of calories in there. It's just empty. It's just junk, and I don't want you to do that. And I think you might be falling prey to that. That said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'm glad you called in, man.
You too, guys.
Take care.
I think Andrew's on the right track because he said, I'm going to churches, I'm asking questions, and they're saying you don't have faith, and that's not enough for me. And I'm watching atheist content, and you guys are making room for discussion. You guys are grappling with questions without that kind of judgment. And all of that is great, and you should continue on that path. And I know a lot of people who come out of religion, whether that's strict indoctrination, or it sounds like in Andrew's case, less indoctrination and more just kind of cultural absorption of a religion. The instinct is to try and grab onto as much as you can and take it with you once you leave. And I think that might be what's happening here, because I know I did that when I started deconverting. So I would stress, and this, I'm saying this as somebody who also loves projects and loves getting my hands dirty and going at it and making things, slow down, calm down, do more thinking, do more research, call in again. Let's have these conversations and come to a place where we're sure we are speaking correctly about things that are meaningful and true before you start building a community. Because what will happen if you build this community while you're in this transitional phase and then you leave it? Suddenly, either the community has to adapt with you or you have to leave the community that you created knowing that it's not accurate. And that can be really tough. So I'd say you're on the right track. You're doing good work. You're asking good questions. Keep researching and leave your presuppositions at the door.
Agreed. Yeah, I think you nailed that pretty well. The only thing that I want to add is that, yeah, it's if you're walking out and you're thinking, okay, we need a book. If we don't have a book, then what are we going to reference? We got to have a book. Okay, well, let's look at this book. Oh, crap, this is not a good book. We need a new book. I mean, I get it. But it's also worth taking that step back and seeing that a lot of these things we are doing, the reason we have the laws we do is because we're trying to codify our morality and our ethics, and laws change as we change. And we see that. There's a lot more that's in play than you think. But I think instead of trying to find and build that community, ground yourself first. Know where you're at. Know why you're there for good reasons. And then from there, approach where you're going honestly. We don't need to give, smaller lies so that we can hit this goal. We can do it without lying to people. We can do it without making space for magical thinking. We don't. It's not a magical world, but it's still a beautiful one. We don't need it. Anyway, we've got one more caller, and we do not have a lot of time. Nick in Virginia, I am so sorry. We do not have too much time, but if you could summarize, kind of what you wanted to say, maybe we can take that question afterward and wrestle with it a bit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all so much for taking my call. So I just wanted to speak very briefly. I'm an anti-theist. My girlfriend is an atheist. She brought up this thoughts a while ago, and we've kind of talked about it on and off. Essentially, at what point as an atheist do we draw a line between protecting other people from really harmful thoughts and oppression from people in Christianity or other religions targeting other people of faith? So essentially, an example, where do we draw the line between protecting Islamic peoples from oppressive Christianity while also understanding that Islam is a religion that has its own troubles and essentially shouldn't be protected either?
Oh, man. All right. Who knows? Maybe we're going to lose a lot of viewers on this one. So here's my take. People are different from their ideas. Easy as that. You could be part of a people who maybe part, in some religion. So let's say we're talking about Muslims. We're talking about people who, it's a very, very diverse group. But there are Muslims out there. I'm not saying all of them, but there are Muslims out there who push for Sharia law. I'm not saying all of them, but that is a thought. I'm against that. Why? Same reason you are. We don't want religion to be the law of the land. We want everyone to kind of approach this from a level playing field, right? You should be protecting people. You should be looking out for people. And just because you're looking out for people doesn't mean you have to accept all of the ideas that they're bringing. And so if you can draw that line between the person and the idea, respect the person, the ideas are not necessarily deserving of respect, then hopefully we can start building that common ground, that we can build that society with each other, even if that means small steps, right? You could have plenty of Muslims who aren't, who don't want Sharia law, who don't want their religious views to be taught, or not just to be taught, but to be enforced legally. Cool. That's a moderate step. Well, we can go with that. We can go from there. You don't need to cast people down to take out their views. You focus on the views, and I think a big problem there is language. So there's a difference between a Jewish person and a cultural Jew, right? If you were raised Jewish, then you were raised in this way. You maybe celebrate certain holidays. Culturally, you could say I'm culturally a Christian. Why? Because I love a lot of things that I learned in church. That doesn't mean that I believe those things. It just means that it's part of my cultural inheritance. It's part of my heritage, and that's okay. And so if you mix that and you say you're persecuting Jewish people, by attacking their ideas, well, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're attacking people when you attack people. You're attacking ideas when you attack ideas. And I think that you shouldn't do the former, but you should absolutely do the latter. It's the same with Muslims. You can have somebody who's culturally raised that way, and all of a sudden, you start mixing their ideas with the people. And people do that all of the time. Heck, man, they did that in my church. In my church, I remember trying to challenge an idea and people being personally affronted and not understanding. They said, well, if you attack my beliefs, you're attacking me. We need to create that separation. And in doing so, I think we can draw those lines out. Now, let's see. Anyway, V, what do you think?
I love that. I think that you were spot on with that. My only suggestion would be a book. And if you're interested in checking it out, it's Our Non-Christian Nation, How Atheists, Satanists, Pagans, and Others Are Demanding Their Rightful Place in Public Life. And that's by Jay Wexler. And he talks about that exact question of how do we build a society that is humanistic and inclusive of everybody, while also making sure that we are challenging ideas that are harmful and moving away from ideas like theocracy or inclusion of church into state. So that's a book that I'm about halfway through, and it's really good. So they kind of talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, Eric, I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yay. Nick, hopefully that helps.
No, I think it's a really great definition of it, we'll say, or approach to it. So I really appreciate your all's insight.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you for calling in.
Have a good one, man.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great one.
You too. Oh, wow. Today was a really good day. We had a lot of really great callers.
Yeah.
So before we do anything else, can we move to that crew cam? Because our crew is friggin' amazing. We've got the Brady Bunch of you now, and I just want to see the Brady Bunch. There we are. Greg, Katie, Mark, and Vern. Thank you so much. I know you may not be able to hear us right now. Hey, Katie.
Oh, steal the show, why don't you?
We just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We would not be able to do this without you. And you're continuing. I mean, you're going to be moving this to helping the Discord. After helping the Discord, you're going to be helping AXP. And then after AXP, you're going to be up late making sure the podcast gets out and everything is done, and then tagging and then clipping everything. I mean, we are incredibly lucky to have you. Thank you so much.
Also, Vern, I already loved you. I already respected you. And then you bring a cat on and just stop being perfect, please. Can't handle it.
If you're watching and you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe. I think it's about time to throw up some love rings. V, let's see. We've been really good so far. I'm going to back up. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I love that. That makes me so happy. All right. So to start off, whether you believe or not, there's a lot going on out there. If you are an essential worker and you are putting yourself at risk for our safety, for our health, to not just at hospitals, yes, at hospitals, but also things like grocery stores, making sure we have food. Mm-hmm. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. You're doing your job. We're doing ours. And wherever you're at, we hope you're safe. For those of you who don't believe, this is your community. We're building it together. And just like our caller earlier, right? As early as this week. We have a lot of work to do. And I love this. This makes me feel like even though sometimes it feels helpless in the middle of the week, you know, when I feel like I can't go outside, or when I feel like there's just so much going on politically that I just kind of want to hang my head. I do feel like we are affecting change, and we're doing it together. Thank you. This is giving us purpose. It's giving me purpose for sure. And do you have anything else you wanted to add, B?
Just we're in your pocket. You might be 35 miles from the nearest town that doesn't have a church on every corner, but we're here. We're willing to talk to you.
Damn straight. And for those of you who do believe, we don't hate you. We just think
you're wrong.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?